I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. It started out like any normal friendship, just me and my best friend, hanging out, playing video games, talking about life. We'd known each other for years, practically grew up together, but I never imagined that his mom, a woman twice my age, would become the center of a story I'd never be able to forget. It all began on an ordinary weekend. My friend had invited me over to his place, just like he always did. His mom was there too, as usual, making small talk with us whenever she passed by. She was the kind of woman who carried herself with confidence, always well put together, always with a certain charm that made people take notice. But to me, she was just my friend's mom. That's it. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Then, something changed. I started noticing the way she looked at me, longer stares, playful smiles, lingering touches on my arm when she spoke. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But the more time I spent at their house, the more obvious it became. She wasn't just being friendly, she was interested, and she wasn't being subtle about it. One evening, my friend had to step out for a while, leaving me alone in the house with her. I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone, trying to ignore the growing tension in the air. Then she sat down next to me, closer than usual. I could feel the warmth of her presence, the slight scent of her perfume filling the space between us. "You know," she said, her voice soft but confident, "I've always thought you were different from the other guys your age." I laughed nervously, not sure how to respond. Uh, thanks?" She smiled, tilting her head slightly. "No, really, you're mature. You actually listen when people talk. It's refreshing." I could feel my heart pounding. This was not a normal conversation. This was not how my best friend's mom should be talking to me. And yet, there was something about the way she spoke, the way she looked at me, that made it impossible to pull away. Just then, the front door opened. My friend was back. The moment shattered, and she quickly stood up, acting as if nothing had happened. But I knew, from that moment on, things would never be the same. I didn't know what to do. Should I tell my friend? Should I act like nothing happened? Or was this just the beginning of something I wasn't ready to face? And that's where everything started spiraling out of control. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The way she looked at me, the way her words seemed to hold a deeper meaning. It was messing with my head. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just my imagination running wild. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. The next time I went over to my friend's house, I tried to act normal, but it felt different. I was more aware of her presence, more conscious of every glance she threw my way, and she wasn't making it any easier. She found little excuses to be near me, offering me something to drink, asking random questions, brushing past me in ways that felt intentional. I started to wonder how long this had been going on. Had she always looked at me this way, and I was just too blind to notice? Or was this something new? Either way, I didn't know how to handle it. She was my best friend's mom. This wasn't supposed to happen. Things took another turn when my friend invited me to stay over one weekend. We had done it plenty of times before, staying up late, watching movies, just being dumb kids. But this time, I felt on edge. I told myself I was overthinking, that I just needed to ignore whatever was happening between me and his mom. That night, after my friend fell asleep, I got up to grab a drink from the kitchen. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the fridge. As I poured myself a glass of water, I heard a soft voice behind me. "Can't sleep?" I turned around, and there she was, standing in the dim light, her expression unreadable. My heart was pounding again, that same nervous energy creeping in. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "Just thirsty." She leaned against the counter, watching me for a moment. "You seem different lately." I swallowed hard. What do you mean? She smiled, but there was something else in her eyes, something that sent a shiver down my spine. I think you know. I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing, caught between the weight of the situation and the fear of what might happen next. And that's when I realized I was in deeper than I ever meant to be, and there was no easy way out. I stood there, gripping my glass, feeling like I was caught in a moment I couldn't escape. Her words hung in the air, thick with meaning. I could hear the steady ticking of the kitchen clock, each second stretching out longer than the last. My brain was screaming at me to walk away, to act like I didn't understand what she meant, but my body felt frozen, trapped between what was right and whatever this was turning into. She didn't break eye contact. It was like she was waiting for me to say something, to acknowledge what we both knew was happening, but I couldn't. Not here. Not in my best friend's house, just down the hall from where he was sleeping. I forced out a nervous chuckle, trying to play it off. I should probably head back, I muttered, setting my glass down. She took a slow step toward me, and for a second I thought she was going to say something else, something that would cross a line we couldn't take back. But instead, she just smiled softly and nodded. "Good night," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned and walked back to my friend's room, my mind racing. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I got here. What was she thinking? Did she do this with other guys? And worst of all, what would happen if my friend ever found out? Over the next few days, I tried to avoid their house, making up excuses to hang out somewhere else. But it didn't matter. I could feel it in the air. This wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Avoiding their house didn't make things any easier. If anything, it made the tension worse. My friend kept asking why I wasn't coming over as much, and I had to keep making up weak excuses. I could tell he was starting to notice something was off. I wasn't acting like myself, and I knew it was only a matter of time before he started asking real questions. Questions I wouldn't have good answers for. But it wasn't just him. His mom wasn't letting me slip away that easily. She started texting me. At first, they were harmless, just casual check-ins, things that could be passed off as friendly. But soon, they became different. Late-night messages, subtle hints, comments that made it clear she knew exactly what she was doing. One night, I got a text from her. "Are you avoiding me?" I stared at the screen, my heart racing. I knew I should ignore it. I knew nothing good could come from responding. But my fingers moved on their own. "I just think it's best if we don't make things weird." A few minutes passed before she replied. "We both know it's already weird." The next time I saw her, it wasn't at their house. It was completely unexpected. I was out running errands when I spotted her across the parking lot. Before I could turn away, she saw me and smiled. And then, without hesitation, she walked straight toward me. "You can't just disappear," she said, her voice low, careful. "We need to talk." I glanced around, nervous that someone might see us. "There's nothing to talk about," I muttered. She stepped closer, lowering her voice even more. "You can keep pretending all you want, but I know you feel it too." My stomach twisted. This was getting out of control. And worse, I didn't know how to stop it. I stood there, my pulse hammering in my ears. She was too close, her words pressing against me like a weight I couldn't shake. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I didn't feel anything, that this was all in her head. But before I could say anything, something else happened, something that made my stomach drop. From the corner of my eye, I saw him, my best friend. He was across the parking lot, walking toward his car, completely unaware of what was happening just a few feet away. For a split second, I thought he was going to see us. My mind went blank. If he looked over and saw me standing this close to his mom, talking in hushed voices like we were hiding something. I didn't even want to think about what would happen. I took a quick step back, putting distance between us. "This isn't a good idea," I whispered, my voice sharp. "Whatever you think is happening here, it has to stop." She held my gaze for a moment, like she was considering whether to push harder. But then, she glanced in the direction of her son, exhaled softly, and gave me a small, knowing smile. "If that's what you really want, we need to talk." Now my mouth went dry. Did he see us? Did he already know? Or was this something else entirely? Then, as if nothing had happened, she turned and walked away. I let out a shaky breath, my hands clenched into fists. That was too close, way too close. But just when I thought the worst had passed, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and felt my stomach twist again. It was a message from my best friend. My heart pounded as I read the message again. "We need to talk." Now I had no choice but to respond. My fingers trembled as I typed back, "Where are you?" A few minutes later, we were sitting in his car, parked in a quiet spot behind a gas station. He was gripping the steering wheel, his jaw tight. I could tell something was off, but I didn't know if it was because he had seen me with his mom, or if it was something even worse. "I need to ask you something," he said finally, his voice low. "And I need you to be honest with me." I swallowed hard, nodding. "Okay." He exhaled sharply, then turned to look at me. "Do you think my mom is cheating on my dad?" The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. This wasn't what I expected. My mind scrambled for the right answer. If I denied it too quickly, would he get suspicious? If I admitted anything, would he put the pieces together? I, I don't know, man," I said carefully. "Why would you think that?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I found messages on her phone from someone. I don't know who." His voice broke slightly. I just, I don't know what to do." I felt sick. The messages weren't from me, but that didn't change the fact that I had been caught in something I never should have been a part of. And then, before I could process anything else, my phone buzzed. A new message from her. "We're not done yet." I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat. This wasn't over, not even close. I stared at my phone, my mind spinning. "We're not done yet." The words felt like a trap, like no matter how hard I tried to walk away, I was already too deep in something I never wanted to be a part of. I couldn't let this go on. Not anymore. I took a deep breath and looked at my friend. He was waiting for me to say something, to give him answers, to help him make sense of what was happening in his own house. But the truth was, I didn't have any answers, and I definitely wasn't the person who should be helping him figure this out. "You should talk to your mom," I said finally, my voice steady. "Ask her yourself." His eyes searched mine, like he was trying to figure out if I was hiding something. But after a moment, he just nodded. "Yeah, I guess I have to." I got out of the car, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. I knew I had to cut this off completely. Whatever game his mom was playing, I wasn't going to be part of it anymore. Later that night, I blocked her number, deleted the messages, and I made a promise to myself that I'd never let something like this happen again. A few days later, my friend told me he confronted his mom. She denied everything, of course, said he was imagining things, and just like that, the whole situation disappeared, at least on the surface. But I knew the truth, and I knew that some lines, once crossed, can never really be erased. I walked away from it all. But part of me still wonders, did I really escape? Or was this just another secret waiting to resurface?